Hello and welcome to HD Movie Talk. I am your host, Dean's Beans, and for the 99th time, I am sitting here with my beautiful, my American, my charismatic co-host. That's right. It's episode 100 of HD Movie Talk, and I am here with Fluffy Duffy. Hello.
Hello. How far we've come.
I should probably clarify we've been here 99 times because in the previous 100 episodes, we've missed one episode each.
Oh, see, you
And
had me for a second there
yeah,
because I'm like, wait, this isn't our 100th episode? I
So,
was
so
pretty
that
sure.
that works out as 98, but then we have episode 0. So that brings us back
Mm,
up to 99. So this is episode 100.
okay. Big maths. I
Big, I
see.
mean, that's just mental. Can we just take a moment and just like sit here in silence as we go down memory lane for like a minute, and then everyone else can just think about what they've heard on this podcast for a minute silence.
I'm so bored. Let's continue.
We edited out the 5 minute
Oh
break.
yeah. We were actually sitting there for like 5 minutes because we were so emotional.
Harlan was looking really wistfully off.
Mm.
into the distance, just into the middle distance. He looked real wistful. If I had to sum that
Wistful.
up,
That's the word? Wistful?
if you're wistfully, I don't know. I have this thing of saying things which I don't know if they're words and I don't know what they mean. But then
See,
when you
that's not fair because I like don't know most words.
don't know most words,
So you can get away with it.
I wonder what percentage of words I know.
I would say I probably know like around 35% of all
I
words.
feel like there's a lot more words than you think there
I
is.
know, like if you pull out a dictionary and you were like circle the words you can't give a definition for, there'd be a lot of circles on that
So
dictionary.
I'd be able to give a definition for all the words because it's written next to the word.
Mm,
Didn't think about that one, did you?
no, I guess not. Okay. Off to a great start. What are we talking about today, Dean?
Today, I mean, we need to take a while to get into this, just because we need to keep the tradition of the previous 100 years of this, because we release one episode a year. Today, we are here to talk about something we talked about a lot when we started this podcast, and I think we've both learned to not talk about this thing. It is the elephant in each of our separate rooms wherever we record, and we are finally addressing said elephant. What is the elephant? That's my impression of an elephant gone, Harlan.
The Last Jedi.
Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Star Wars Episode 8.
A controversial film, to say the least, that we have
Indeed.
different opinions on. And we're here to finally get down and dirty and discuss our thoughts on this film in length. I don't think that was the right thing to say.
You know, I was a little bit worried about this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because over time, you know, we've had light discussions about this movie.
Yeah, we've never really gotten into it. Like, even when we've been to like not recording, we've never really gone into it that I remember.
And if I'm being honest, it's because like I didn't remember much, and you were able to convince me that this movie's actually not half bad. And so I was worried because I knew I was going to have to play, because I don't,
advocate, yeah.
you love this movie, so I was worried that I wouldn't be able to play against this movie.
Yeah.
But rewatching it after years, I've been waiting to rewatch it because I knew that this day would come.
This day,
this forsaken day.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be able to play this part just fine.
Okay. Before we talk anything about this film, I think an easy question to start us off with, just so that, because you're not an abhorrent sequel hater like a lot of the Last Jedi haters are.
No,
you're someone I can tolerate, is what I'm trying to say.
I think we both have an appreciation and distaste for the sequels.
Yeah,
like there even in Last Jedi, there are some things it does well, and like I don't hate Rian Johnson. I call Rey Skywalker because that's what the movie said her name was going to be.
Say. So she is like, I don't want her to be Rey Skywalker, but she is, and there's nothing we can do with that. So get used to it.
Like there are people that will hate on the sequels to the day they die, and there are people that will praise the sequels to the day they die, and then there's the middle folk, and I think those are the most sane ones, and I think we're both there. So this
Yes.
should be an interesting conversation.
So the question, I was going to open this up just so people can gauge our opinions on this. What Star Wars films do you think are definitely worse than The Last Jedi?
Definitely worse.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I can say for sure is Rise of Skywalker.
Really?
Yeah.
Not one or two?
No.
Do you want to hear my list?
Sure.
Definitely worst. Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3. I'm a Revenge of the Sith hater, is all I'm saying. Solo. I'm
You're losing me, man. You're losing me.
well,
I don't know.
I lost you at Solo because you
No, you
love
lost
the
me at Revenge of
film.
the Sith.
You love the film Solo so much. I'm really umming and ahhing. I'm not count. I'm really
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I'm going in order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll definitely go Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker. I'm really umming and ahhing about Return of the Jedi, and because I'm umming and ahhing, that means I can't say it's definitely worse.
Yeah, there you go. Good job.
So the ones I'm counting above are the original trilogy and Rogue One. Other than that, I think every Star Wars film is worse than this.
Okay.
I haven't warned you about this, but I did have an idea of how to start this discussion about 5 minutes ago.
What was your
I have found
idea
on the internet, it's a wonderful place, a Cinema Blend article about the 8 biggest complaints angry Star Wars fans seem to have about The Last Jedi.
Okay.
Do you want to just talk about these points one by one and see if you agree with them as complaints and whether they're severe complaints?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The first one's a big one. And I already have too many thoughts.
Okay, just say it.
Snoke is dead.
I don't know.
You don't know? Can I talk you through? This is going to be a running theme, so I'm just going to give like an overall thought on The Last Jedi. I think I honestly, this is an overall thought about the sequel trilogy. I think every single problem that has almost every single problem, every single story problem that has risen up in the sequel trilogy that people dislike, especially about episode 8 and 9, are the fault of episode 7. Because although episode 7 is a pretty good film, I think it sets up too many mysteries that were always going to end in disappointment. And I think it didn't really do anything new. And it left such a big gap.
Okay, I see where you're going. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with you.
Okay.
So what I actually, this is why I hate Rise of Skywalker so much. It's because I actually kind of enjoy the idea of episode 7 setting up all this mystery boxes, or how J.J. Abrams refers to them. And then like episode 8 just kind of spits in the face of all that. Mm-hmm. And if episode 9 kind of buckled down on that and was more like anybody has access to the Force and like that sort of theme and ideology, that could have been really cool, but that's not what they did, and it kind of made the points made in episode 8 a little pointless.
So I personally, I knew this was going to come up. I don't think you can complain anything to do with The Last Jedi about something that happened in The Rise of Skywalker.
What do you mean?
I don't think you can say it's a negative point about The Last Jedi as a film because of something that happened in episode 9, because I think that's a whole different conversation about why that film didn't work.
100%. And I'm not, honestly, that's not a dig towards The Last Jedi, but considering we were talking about episode 7 as well, I was just like saying, like, I think, that's why the trilogy didn't work.
Yeah.
But so on my TikTok, I sort of had like a month long big Star Wars rewriting phase,
Yes, you did.
and I spent so long rewriting The Last Jedi.
Hmm.
And I think I after this is over, I can send you like the PDF I made, but it was like 3 pages long, and I was like, I can't make this a TikTok, so I scrapped it all. Um, but I think I did end up making Snoke a 3 episode long villain, so like he was there
Yeah.
for all of it. But okay, going back to what the first question is, I don't like Snoke dying. I think works, but I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Yeah. So my thought on Snoke dying is I think and this is also true for Rey's parents, which is a different conversation. I think if you remember, cast your mind back to 2017, The Last Jedi doesn't exist as a film yet.
Okay.
And you click on YouTube, and every single YouTube thumbnail in the world is Snoke's face next to the face of another Star Wars character. And there's like 3 arrows going to and from and being like, Snoke is
Yeah.
Glup Shitto theory. He's Dexter
Uh-huh.
Jexter. And it's also true for Rey's parents. I think because of what Star Wars is, by the time episode 8 came out, you could have I truly believe you could choose any Star Wars character that's ever existed. And
Yeah.
you could make a theory about, oh, Snoke is this guy. And and
100%.
and I think I believe there is no satisfying way to answer the question of who is Snoke because of all this expectation that was put on the question. And that's the core issue with the mystery boxes in episode 7 is that I feel like because Star Wars is such a big thing and there's that 2 year gap, there's no satisfying way to wrap it up. And maybe I think there could have been a satisfying way if J.J. Abrams came up with an answer before he posed the question and left clues. I think
Yeah.
that could have been interesting. But because he was kind of like, oh, just someone else figure it out. I'm not going to
Hmm.
direct the next 2 films. Of course, he ended up directing one, but
Yeah. No, I agree. What's the next question?
the next point. This is a short one, and I think this is kind of the article being a bit silly.
Okay.
Leia floating through space.
Mm.
So this is when the ship blows up and sorry, this is separate. It annoys me when people are like, oh, they killed off Admiral Akbar and they barely said anything about it. Shut up. He's barely a character.
Yeah. I mean, same goes for like Boba Fett. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really care, but casting all like Star Wars theories, all lore aside, I
Yeah.
do think Leia floating is a little goofy.
It looked a bit goofy. Like I can agree with that. But I think we can also both agree it's just not a complaint of the film.
No, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it does look a bit goofy, but I mean, you get the cool symbolism of her flying through Snoke's ship. Did you spot that one? There's
Nope.
a when she flies through, there's a hologram of Snoke's ship sideways
Oh,
in
interesting.
in the thing, and she flies straight through the bit where the holdo maneuver happens. Uh, I also I like that scene because you get the bit of Kylo hesitating.
Yeah, I think it's a good scene. What's the next
I should
question?
clarify. I haven't read this article, so they could all be awful points. I read the first
Okay.
2 points. Beyond this, I haven't read any points, so we could both just agree with
Okay,
all.
and that's okay.
Rey's parents. We kind of spoke about this.
Again, it's especially rewatching. It's painful knowing that that's not the case. You know what I mean? It is painful, right?
It's so. It's just.
You could admit to it. It's hard to watch knowing what happens.
Yeah.
Because it
It's
would like, you know what? This is we're going to get into this, and I think we're going to agree. We already talked. I have no problem with Rey being a nobody. If that's
no.
what they wanted to do it, and I think that's cool. And it took me a long time to come around to it,
Mm-hmm.
just because me, along with like everybody, was like looking for some like big reveal,
Yeah. She's
but
a
it didn't
Kenobi.
happen.
I thought she was a Kenobi. Who
Um,
did you think Snoke was? Do you remember having a theory?
oh, 100% Mace Windu.
Did you?
That was my whether or not I believed it, I don't know, but I wanted it to be true.
Do you remember all the things about him having the same scars as Darth Vader?
Oh yeah, and like how the helmet is like burnt and like the
Yeah. Getting back to the point, people did complain. So people, when the Last Jedi came out, people complained that they just brushed over Snoke, and in the next film they explained who Snoke is, and then people still complained. It was dumb, but that's besides the point. Yeah, Rey's parents. I think once again, I think it's like I don't know what is the most like how would what would a more satisfying answer to that question would have been, considering what the Last Jedi, sorry, what the Force Awakens set up. Like, do you think in this film, if they went, she's a Kenobi, and here's the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and here, do you think that would have? I know people would have liked it more, but would that be more of an interest?
no, and I say that because the entire movie sets up that reveal. Like if it was just all of a sudden, hello there, and it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like it wouldn't have made sense. Like,
Yeah,
but like if they set up the movie being like, and there was this old Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi, like if there was that, then it would
yeah.
have been like, but the movie sets it up
I
well, and
still feel like you need that in the Force Awakens as well, though.
a hello there.
Yeah, hello there. Definitely, that's what I meant. What was I going to say? This is before we get to the next point. I have a question for you.
Okay,
So, uh, is it Colin Trevorrow who was doing episode 9? Is that his name? I think so.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the before J.J. Abrams that
Yeah,
filled
it
in.
was Colin Trevorrow, I think, the guy who did Jurassic World, and
Oh,
he did a film called A Monster Calls, and it did badly. So as Lucasfilm did, Lucasfilm fired him.
okay.
Like James Mangold is about to be fired from his Star Wars film, probably.
You think so?
I don't
I
know.
hope not. I
It's
I
a
am
joke.
so excited for that. That is my
Yeah,
most anticipated Star Wars project.
same. I think the joke is that he's getting fired because Indiana Jones is on like 50% on Rotten
Mm.
Tomatoes. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was fired, but also,
Yeah, no, they also fired like the Game of Thrones guys.
yeah,
So
yeah, and like Chris and Chris, what are the names? Lord and Miller. They did
from
Solo originally,
Solo, yeah,
and they did and since they've been like executive producers on Spider Verse and the Lego Movie. So joke,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
jokes on Disney.
got
Um,
him.
but my question was going to be if they gave Ryan Johnson episode 9 by some weird fluke and then he got to continue the story of episode 8. Do you think this film would be looked upon fondly, more
One
fondly?
hundred percent, one
Yeah.
hundred percent, without a doubt in my mind.
Okay. Follow up question. If you could choose one of the two directors to do the entire trilogy, who would you
Ryan
choose?
Johnson.
Interesting.
Because
Yeah, I agree.
Ryan Johnson has a better track record, in my opinion. J.J. Abrams, I think J.J. Abrams would have been a better choice, but I think Ryan Johnson would have been more interesting.
Yeah, I think
And I,
J.J. Abrams has really he's people have really changed their opinion on him since um Rise of Skywalker. I mean,
he's
his Star
really
Trek trilogy is good. I mean, he
J.J.
just
Abrams
suffered.
is really good at making palatable movies for a
Yeah,
general audience. Like he kind of falls into that Russo brothers, Peyton Reed
yeah,
sort of universe.
yeah. He did do Mission Impossible 3. That's a solid film.
But Ryan Johnson, I think, is a lot more experimental, and I like the way he tells stories.
Yeah. What about if we chuck Colin Trevorrow into the mix?
I have no opinion on him.
I'm gonna look because I'm gonna check I'm right. Because I think yeah Jurassic World trilogy is what you'd know him for.
All right, what's the next point? There's one specific there's a couple, but there's one specific point that I think I'll go on a tangent for a
Okay.
while, and it'll be the um
Okay. This article isn't great. Um, it's now it's because I clicked on a different article.
oh
I clicked on a different article of all the theories about who Ray is related to. One of them is she's a relative of Palpatine. What I think could have been interesting if she was another Force baby, like
Yeah.
Anakin. I think that could have been interesting, but that's besides the point. Um, Luke Skywalker meets his end.
Oh, I don't like that.
You don't like that he died in this film, or
No.
you don't like how he died. Which one is it?
Um, both. I'll say both.
Okay.
I don't like. I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but I would have preferred to see like a huge, you know, swan song. Like he got sort of a swan song, but he wasn't there. He didn't get to say goodbye to Han, which I think also could be a complaint on the seventh
Yeah,
movie. So
I
I'm
don't
not
think.
going to factor that into my
Yeah,
opinion, but I'm just throwing that out there. Um, but eh, you know, I
yeah.
think it would have been cool. I wish he had his green lightsaber.
I think I 100% agree with you. I wish Vision Luke or what like I don't know projection Luke whatever you call him.
Mm-hmm.
If he had the green lightsaber, that would be sick. But I think the reason why they chose the blue was as another clue to how it obviously wasn't real Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
And I
and I
think,
get that argument, but like also we already had a clue.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, only can have one clue. I'm gonna throw this out there. This is gonna be controversial, but I
Okay.
believe this. I believe wholeheartedly. That scene on Crate is my favorite scene in all of Star Wars.
Okay. Okay. That took that one. That one. Okay. What's the next question? I
No, no,
can't do
no.
that. I can't do
Harlan,
that.
Harlan. The whole
Mm.
point of this episode 100 is we're not brushing stuff under the rug. We're talking about this stuff. What are your issues with the scene? I'm interested.
I don't have any issues with the scene,
What's
but
your?
like the Mustafar fight sequence is better.
Uh, uh,
It just is. Like I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like it just is.
we know I'm a Revenge of the Sith hater.
They're
Are we following our year anniversary tradition of watching a Star Wars film for Silver Lining?
yeah.
Are we?
Yep.
Does that mean we're doing Revenge of the Sith?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
It's gonna
Just
be really hard. It's gonna be a really hard day for me.
how do you think I
That's
feel?
my favorite Star Wars movie. Just putting that out there. That is my favorite Star Wars movie.
You've changed. You've changed. Oh, we used to be so close. I didn't know episode 100 would be the one to end it all.
Okay, let's continue. What's the next question?
So the reason I've grown so negative about Revenge of the Sith
Yeah,
is
why?
is from back in the day when I used to do my letterboxed ratings. Revenge of the Sith would appear in people's top four 10 times more than any other Star Wars film. And it would annoy me because, like, I think every film of the original trilogy is 5 times better than Revenge of the Sith. And it would just really upset me that they'd keep putting it.
I just developed a very hot take,
What's that?
and I know for a fact you won't agree with this.
Okay, go
For
on.
a 100% fact.
Yeah.
I don't think any Star Wars project is above an 8.5 out of 10.
I think it depends what lens you're looking at
It
the three.
in terms of like my like if I had to rate them all, like on
Yeah,
Letterboxd.
but like I think it's difficult to rate films like Star Wars, like as in I mean A New Hope, because of
It is, but
everything that film's touched. Because it depends if you're like just pure enjoyment level, then yeah, sure, maybe an 8.5 is fair. But then if you start factoring like the technical elements of it and what went into making it, then I think you have to go above an 8.5. I think it depends like what you're rating it on. Like pure enjoyment, I like 8.5 I could see. But anything beyond that,
I don't know, like, it's hard for me to say, like, "Oh, well, the technology really pushed boundaries," because it did, and Star Wars, just the franchise in general is boundary pushing, and I think breaks so many grounds, and I think that's why, like, Star Wars is a classic. Like,
Mhm.
A New Hope is a classic, but, like, I don't know, like, if for Avatar, do I have to give that a 10 out of 10 because that pushed new ground or
Yeah,
things like that?
I
I
think
get what you're saying,
yeah,
but, like, I don't when I rate a movie, it's from how much I enjoyed it
yeah.
and if
I
it
but like also I feel like as a like a cultural thing and a like all of that, and I think we would take so much of Star Wars as like we take so much of the original trilogy for granted because every other film we've watched since then has been copying it in one way or another.
that's true. Um,
Okay. So
but
can before we move on to the next point,
yeah.
we didn't know haven't finished this point. So before we get back onto this point,
Mhm.
can you just say what you said about again about Star Wars always being innovative?
Innovative, like how it always pushes new grounds.
Yeah. Did The Force Awakens do that?
Hmm.
Okay.
No, it did the opposite.
Okay, follow-up question. Did The Last Jedi?
Yes.
Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
But also, like, I'm sorry if we go back again. Which one did I enjoy more?
Which one do you enjoy more?
Um, 7.
Seven. Do you enjoy seven more? I
Mhm.
haven't watched seven in years.
7's fun. It's easy.
I just I just have I just dislike seven more and more because I think about how it ruined the next two films.
Yeah, but okay, let's see, this is the thing. Like, I legitimately think episode 9 ruined the 2. I don't think it's episode 7 ruined the next 2. Episode 9 ruined the previous 2.
But like I struggle with the idea of like a film that's come out after the other two ruining the other two because I think it's what episode 7 sets the other two films up for failure.
I
And I think
I
episode 7
don't
in
think
itself is not an actively bad film, but I think the groundworks of that, like, so people, before we get into the whole Luke characterization, just as a small snippet of it, there's the whole Luke's cut himself off and like J.J. Abrams painted Ryan Johnson into a corner because Luke's hidden on some planet for some unknown reason. He's clearly cut himself off from the Force. When you meet him, the only solution to him being a hermit, hiding out in the middle of nowhere, and like not being connected to the Force must be because he's given up on something. Must be because he's given up on this, or like something along those lines. So I think you then have to do something satisfying with the hand you're dealt.
right.
But I think this Luke Skywalker conversation is a much longer one. My final thought, because I know we will just disagree on Luke dying in this, is he does get a lot of shine in this film, I think.
Yes, he does.
And at the end of the day, this trilogy isn't about him.
That's true.
If
Um,
I don't know, and I think I think the crate scene is just the most Jedi thing a Jedi has ever done. Like just saving people, not hurting anyone, and and also it's just really cool. Did you? I'm guessing you didn't see the twist coming on your first watch.
when it turned out he wasn't there.
Yeah, like
Oh
did
no,
you?
I figured it out. I figured
Did,
it out.
did you? Well done. I
Mhm.
didn't, and I thought it was very. I think it's a satisfying reveal.
It is a satisfying review. I was when I saw it, I was like, yes, like I liked it.
And
I
like,
don't dislike it. I just don't think it's the best
yeah, fair
fight
enough.
scene in all of Star Wars.
I didn't say fight scene. I said scene. Like the best fight scene, I think, is different. If I had to choose the best fight scene, I probably wouldn't choose this scene because it doesn't have the best fight.
Okay.
But that just shoulder flick at the end is just, you know, iconic. And I just really like Kylo Ren in this film, which we'll also get to. Okay. Next point. I think you're going to be on my side for this one.
Okay.
There's too much humor.
Mm, maybe. These three movies are like funnier, and also Star Wars is kind of like they just throw in humor. Like the prequels are pretty funny.
That's what I mean. Like, I think you can't really complain when you've got like Jar Jar Binks and Ewoks.
No, and also like I love the MCU. Like I'm in, like I can't get like I
Yeah.
don't really care about things being too humorous. Um,
It's always just if it's done right. And I don't think humor undermines.
I think there are a lot of emotional parts in this movie, and they aren't spoiled by humor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there's like more modern style jokes. Like I think each Star Wars
Mhm.
trilogy has a different style of humor. And I think that's kind of the point. Like
Yeah,
you've got to
and
innovate.
also like
There was big
I
complaints. Sorry,
I think the humor is overdone where it's appropriate to be.
I get
So
that.
like it's all preference.
I remember there was a big complaint about Poe Dameron making a "your mum" joke. Um,
No, that's funny.
in that, and it's not a "your mum" joke anyway, is it? Yeah, a little bit. It's when he's in the X-wing fly up. I like that when he's. I just like General Hux in this film.
He's good.
He's good, and then they just.
Oh,
I don't
we're not
even
we're
know.
not talking about that. We're not talking about
I
that,
didn't
Dean.
even
We're
know
not
what they
talking about
did with him. That's going to be
that.
on our like 13th year on this podcast. We'll finally get around to.
All right. What point is next? I think
Okay.
we do an agreement on that.
Uh, okay. Here's the begin ish. Canto Bite.
This is the big one.
It isn't the strongest part of the film, 100%. I think that goes without saying,
It's
but
pretty weak. Problem.
I don't actively dislike it.
This isn't good. This is probably going to get into another question that's on that list. But anything that has to do with
Oh, here we go.
disregarding Kylo Ren, Luke, Leia, like the entire Force aspect to this movie, I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else in this movie, I actively dislike.
I really like the Poe Dameron stuff.
I don't.
Interesting. So I don't like. I think to me the Canto Bight is weaker than the rest of the film and mostly inoffensive. I feel slightly protect. I will admit my opinion may be slightly uh like biased on this because I feel a bit protective over Rose Tico after what J.J. Abrams did to her. So like
And the Star Wars community.
oh 100% the Star Wars community, but I think the biggest error that was made was by J.J. Abrams when everyone's hating on her, hating on the Kelly Marie Tran so much that she like quit social media. And then his response to that was, "Oh, let's just not put her in the next film."
Well, I mean, that's kind of what Star Wars like they did that with Jar Jar, too.
Yeah, and I think it is wrong as well. I mean,
I
I
agree.
would argue Jar Jar has more of a part in 2 and 3 than Rose Tico does in 9 because she isn't.
I think they have the same amount to do in the final trilogy episode. Like I think Jar Jar's
Yeah,
in
episode
Revenge
3.
of the Sith as
Yeah.
much as. But anyways, the part I find most sure I'll use the word insulting. That's a little bit dramatic, but
I am personally insulted. Yeah.
is Finn.
Okay.
I think Finn is the greatest misstep in this entire trilogy
I agree.
because the fact that a stormtrooper turned rebel, maybe Jedi, is cool.
No, he's definitely a Jedi because remember he really wanted to tell Ray something. He really, really wanted to tell Ray something, but he kept. I just love John Boyega as well.
And in theory, okay, in this is putting on my Star Wars nerd brain. And
Mm-hmm.
this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get a little bit into episode 9, just a little bit, but it'll
Okay.
tie back, I
I mean, I
promise.
keep making jokes about it, so I'll allow it.
In the comics, it is alluded that Palpatine made Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, yeah.
And in a
I mean, it's
sense,
alluded in the
one
films as well.
one could argue that that makes him a descendant of Palpatine.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if that's the
yeah,
case, then that means Rey and Kylo are related, and that makes it incest. In episode 8 and episode 9, it is constantly hinted that there is some sort of relationship between Finn and Rey that isn't a sister brother thing, but more of a like girlfriend boyfriend thing. And I think
I
that's what
don't
it
think
should have been.
I don't think it's massively
More
hinted.
than more than Finn and Rose. That's for damn sure.
I don't think. I mean, I don't think it's massively hinted in episode 8.
But just the fact that the first thing Finn says when he wakes up is "Where's Rey?" I think is
I don't think there's anything explicitly romantic about the amount he cares for Ray. If it
not explicitly romantic, but then he just goes off on a side quest with Rose. And you know what? I don't have any problem with the actress.
Mhm.
I think she is 100% not deserving of all the hate she got for her portrayal, but I'm not a fan of Rose's character.
Yeah, I don't have like once again I'm kind of like, oh, she's inoffensive. She's there like
Until the end. I the part I hate more about Rose as a character and their entire arc is the ending of her shaving Finn and kissing him when he obviously doesn't feel the similar way.
I mean,
And even if, like, I
sorry.
think what?
It just sounded like you've had a conversation with Finn and he's like, yeah, don't tell anyone, but I'm really
Did you
not
see?
gonna
His eyes were open, bro. Rose went to kiss him, and
yeah.
the entire time he was looking at her like.
It was just a funny thing to say. I really like her line there. I think it's perfect cheesy Star Wars stuff where she goes,
It is perfect cheesy Star Wars stuff.
where she
Star Wars
she
is cheesy.
says, "We don't win this by destroying what we hate, but by saving what we love." I'm like, that's a good rebellion line. That sounds like something Leia Organa would say.
Yes, it does. But I just think like there are so many cooler side quests they could have sent Finn and Rose on. And this weird gambling planet where there's an animal cruelty arc. Like it really feels tacked on, and like Ryan Johnson or whoever, did Ryan Johnson write this?
He
I don't
co-wrote it, I'm pretty sure.
it really feels like they put everything into writing this movie with Kylo and Rey, and then they're like, oh man, we have to do things with these characters too. That's what it feels like to me, because I love the Rey and Kylo stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't like anything else.
Interesting. What? Okay.
And that's one thing, like, I think a lot of Last Jedi haters hate the Rey and Kylo stuff because it changes things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it subverts expectations, and I think fans don't like it because they were expecting one thing and they got something else. But you can learn to like accept that and like it, which is what I did. But then there's just the bad parts of the movie that I don't like.
Adore Ben Solo in this film.
Yes.
I think it's phenomenal, and I think I mean, do not get me started. My biggest nitpick about Rise of Skywalker is that Kylo Ren has a helmet, and I'm like, that is the most explicit like disregarding of what Ryan Johnson did. It is like symbolic of everything J.J. Abrams did in Rise of Skywalker, where he's like, it's a real symbolic moment of Kylo Ren destroying that helmet and like kind of choosing not to be like Anakin and like moving on and like developing as a character, and then and then JJ Abrams like, oh, let's just give him his helmet back and go back to how things were when I did it. And this isn't the conversation we're having, but I really love just his growth over the film. And every time um, Ray and Ben would have their Skype call, um, like, and he would be questioning Ray and talking to Ray in a really interesting way. And then you get to the throne scene, and I really really love the thing where Snoke's like, and he's pointing the lightsaber to where it's true, and he's like, I can see your mind has been clouded, but now it's clear, and you're turning the lightsaber and you're igniting the lightsaber, and I think that's a really. I think no matter what your opinion on Snoke dying is, I think that is a really well done, like, I don't want to say twist because maybe it's not a twist, but a really well done reveal about how, oh,
Yeah.
your mind's clear and all of that. Um, and then I think, and then you have the whole Thrones fight scene, which is, I think, a really great scene.
Some
And
people like it, some people don't. My friend hates it.
yeah, yeah, um,
But I'm not sure about it.
yeah, and then at the end of that, you get the thing like, oh, Ray's like, oh, he's on my side now. And Ben's like, no, I'm not. I just didn't like that guy. Doesn't mean I'm on. And I think that's also a really interesting dynamic because it's kind of like the assumption is, oh, he's a good guy now because you're either with the bad guys or with the good guys. And he's like, no, it's a bit more complex than that, which is the entire point that what's his face? Benicio del Toro is trying to get across in the Canto Blight scene. And that's the message there and the message there, and that's how those two things link.
Here, give me 1 second.
Yeah. Okay. I have a big question about the throne fight scene.
Yeah.
It's not a big question. I just want you to be on my side here.
Okay.
Do you know all those videos about how the throne fight scene is really dumb?
Mm-hmm.
Because like weapons disappear from hands and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you think they're a bit dumb, those videos?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it kind of proves that it was a little sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, my friend that hates it, he is like, he's a stage combat minor. Like, he when he goes to see like Star Wars movies, like that's what he looks for. He looks for the big fight scenes, and that's what he really loves from Star Wars. And he hates that fight scene because it's sloppy.
Yeah, and I think if your brain is on that level, then I can accept that. But mine isn't. And I like whenever I see those videos, I'm like, these people complaining about it, there is no way they noticed this on their first watch.
No, and I agree. Like, that's where I'm at. Is like, yeah, do the weapons disappear at times? Yeah, but does it look pretty cool? Yeah. So I enjoy it.
No one gets that mad about there being like two Ant-Men in the Endgame fight, you know?
Right.
Like in the portal scene, no one's like, oh, this is really sloppy because there's like two Hulks at one point and there's two Ant-Men and he got from over here to over here and no one cares because people enjoy it. And it's true for anything. I think you're willing to forgive like slightly crappy CGI if you really love the film.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think it's true for anything. Yeah, and that was what I wanted to say about the throne scene, other than just how amazing Kylo Ren is.
Kylo Ren is very good in this movie.
And then in the next film, he's like, oh, whatever.
Hey, we're not here to talk about that. We're not here to talk about that.
And
all right, what's next?
Somehow Palpatine has returned.
I think this article is a perfect way to guide our conversation.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay. This one we've talked, there's two left, and we've talked about this one. It didn't build off The Force Awakens.
It did.
It did.
It did. We talked about this, and I'll just sum up my point. Is it did? It subverted expectations, but the third one did not, and that's where it failed.
The third one built off The Force Awakens. 100% it did.
Honestly, like, I'm not opposed to just ignoring that the last one happened and just looking at it as the first two.
The thing is the
duology.
Yeah, like it is a satisfying ending. You know, it's not Empire Strikes Back where, I mean, the film does kind of end with them losing in a way, but
yes and no. I don't think it does.
Yeah.
Like, they inspire the next generation of the Jedi, and it leaves off on like a kid looking out into the galaxy, and I think like it could easily like that could have been the last one,
Hmm.
and we're left. Our mind is left to the imagination.
I've never been so upset and disappointed by a film as I was at The Rise of Skywalker.
I didn't care enough when it came out.
Really, I was so annoyed. But that happens to me sometimes. I'm just when I go
Oh,
and
I
watch
know.
bad films, I need to like make sure I'm going with the right person. Last week
All
I
right.
went to watch Fast X. Have I told you this? I don't think it was an oral recording.
What?
I was going to watch Fast X, a film I knew was going to be bad, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't think I was going to get the chance to watch it with Will. So he was like, "I'll just go watch it by yourself." I was like, "No, I'm definitely not watching this by myself. I'm waiting for you because if I went to watch that film by myself, I would have left the cinema livid. It would have been like Morbius. I would have just like
We don't
hated
want
every
that.
second of it." But because Will was there, we were just having a nice laugh with each other as we went along, and we were like, "Ha ha ha! This film is really stupid." That's what I needed, and maybe I needed that when I watched Rise of Skywalker. Before we continue the conversation, Will has messaged me,
Hmm.
and I feel the need to share this. For our listeners, before we started recording, Harlan revealed to me that he has finally watched the Lord of the Rings extended trilogy, and
Mhm.
Will is a massive Lord of the Rings fan. And I messaged him to tell Harlan that he watched Lord of the Rings, and Will replied, "Oh, how the saga of his charm continues."
Oh, what a cutie.
And that's all I have to share before we get back to it.
All right. What's the final point that this article makes?
This is an interesting one, and it's not the big one that we still need to talk about, but it didn't build off the Force Awakens. Oh no, sorry, I just said that. I didn't scroll down. I just opened my phone and read what was in front of me. It wasn't Star Wars.
It wasn't Star Wars.
Like it didn't feel like Star Wars.
I no.
It is.
Screw that.
Yeah. Okay.
Personally.
Okay. A few small things to talk about before we get to the big one. And it's just things I love and I want to get off my chest.
Okay.
The Holdo maneuver. Beautiful.
Yeah, cool. I'm willing to let go. Like people have been like, oh, why didn't they do that before? Shut up. It's cool. Let the movie.
Just when people try and apply laws of physics to Star Wars,
Yeah.
I'm just like people were complaining, oh, the bombs are falling by gravity in the opening scene, and there's no gravity in space. Shut up! It's Star
Shut
Wars,
up. Shut up.
and that's a good scene.
It is. You can
That
also
bomb.
use the argument that like the shield sort of gives it a shield activated shield gives them a sense of gravity. You can out logic them for sure.
Whatever. Like in The Force Awakens, Han Solo lands on Starkiller Base by traveling light speed at the planet, and in between entering the atmosphere of the planet and hitting the surface, he turns off light speed. Like that's the most stupid thing in the world, and no one complains about that. Anyway, what do you think my second favorite scene in this film is? If my favorite scene is Luke sacrificing himself.
Oh,
I think you'll like this scene.
I don't know. What is it?
Yoda.
Oh yeah, it's sick. Again, everything involving Jedi in this movie I enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, number one, I'm immediately head over heels because it's puppet Yoda. And I'm like, this is great.
We don't meet eye to eye.
We don't
CGI
get
Yoda.
into the flippy Yoda. Flipping Yoda.
You know what? I just want to take a moment. I've asked all of my friends if they like flipping Yoda, and they were like, "Yeah, it's cool." And I go, "Do you know who doesn't like it? My British friend." And they're like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "He doesn't like it." I don't know what to tell you.
I'm like,
it's sick. It's sick.
This is one of the things where I don't feel the need to get others on my side. I'm kind of like,
because you know you're wrong. Anyways,
I mean, okay, puppet Yoda is better than CGI Yoda. That's all I'm saying. I just like the charm of it, and that's all it is. I like the
he
charm.
does have a certain charm, 100%.
And I think it's just I like silly little Yoda being like, failure is the real best teacher. Yes, failure most of all. And then like he just destroys the Jedi texts. And then you get the meme of Luke being like, no, the Jedi texts. And Yoda's like, hey, bro, you didn't even read them, mate. Just absolutely. I just enjoy that, like, Luke probably hasn't spoken to Yoda in like 30 years. And this guy just shows up, absolutely schools him, mocks him, teaches him a really valuable lesson, and then disappears. I'm like, that's like the closest Yoda has been to his character in Empire Strikes Back than he has in any other Star Wars film, because he just appears and he's like, I'm just going to play a little, like, when you think, this is off topic, so I apologize.
No, you're good.
But when you think about in Empire Strikes Back, when Yoda just for 5 minutes pretends to be some weirdo and he's like, oh, you want to find the real Jedi Master? He just plays a little joke on Luke. Like, you never see that side of Yoda again after that. And it just makes me laugh that this guy becomes like in the prequels, he's just the wisest Jedi Master ever. And then he becomes a hermit, doesn't see anyone for like probably like what 15 years, and then he sees someone and he's like, I'm gonna prank this guy so hard. He just starts like fumbling around. I'm like, what?
It is great. It is a great.
Legend. And no, I feel like that doesn't come up enough. He just decided to prank Luke, like, you know, that yeah, that doesn't come up enough. That he's just a little fun guy, and that's what he is.
A little mushroom.
He's fun.
Do you get it? Do you get it?
Yeah.
What do you like? Because you said fungi.
Yeah. He's just a silly, goofy guy, you know. But also he's 900 years old and yeah, whatever. And then the lightning's cool. Just
Okay, so what's your big point? What's like your big thing?
I know you're not going to go on hard as this as a lot of people do, but people's biggest complaint about The Last Jedi that I still see so often, which still irks me, is that this is like character assassination for Luke Skywalker. And people really don't like what's done with his character here.
I'm not the biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
I like, even Mark Hamill isn't. Okay, pause before you interrupt me.
Sorry, I was going to say this is my least favorite thing in the world when people were like, oh, it's so bad. Even Mark Hamill hates it. And he hates Kathleen Kennedy. And he hates the sequel films. And Mark Hamill is one of us. He loves Jar Jar Binks. And yeah.
Okay. I've seen his clarification video.
Yeah.
And he says he regrets saying those things.
Mm-hmm.
He understands Rian Johnson's vision.
Mm-hmm.
But he also said that isn't where he would have taken the character.
No, I like when you think about Mark, I think there's two things here. When you think about Mark Hamill and you read this script and you see how Luke's changed, I would understand why you'd feel the way you did, because you know how much this character means to people, and it's been a part of you for 50 years almost, for 45 years. Well, not quite.
Mm-hmm.
It was 40 years at the time. And like, I get that. And I love Mark Hamill. I adore Mark Hamill. He's one of my, people say, like, if I can meet any celebrity, it might be Mark Hamill. Like that, he might be my choice. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about this. Like, this is a question I've asked you a few times. And part of the reason is because I love him, and part of the other reason I'd love to meet him because he's so passionate about everything he does. So he'd be great to talk to about this stuff. And like, yeah, he is passionate. But really, this might sound harsh. He's not the like, he's never had any involvement in like Luke Skywalker as a character in terms of like script or anything else. Like, he's not the be all and end all of how Luke Skywalker should act. And like, obviously he's got an insight into the character that I don't have, because he played this guy. But he's not the definitive voice of, like, if he went, oh, Luke Skywalker wouldn't do that, that doesn't mean he's right, is what I'm trying to say.
No, he's just like a dude that was paid to read out certain
Yeah,
lines on a
like if
script.
George Lucas said it, I think that's a different conversation because he wrote those 3 films
Mhm.
and he invented this character.
I do think an argument could be made. Like, I do think Mark Hamill had some sort of a say, like especially come Return of the Jedi and like all that. Like,
Yeah,
he definitely had some sort of being like had conversations with Lucas, what to take the character. But at the end of the day, like the way I look at it is like he's just an actor who was hired and paid money to read lines and
yeah.
portray. But like,
And obviously,
so
like he does know more about this character than we do, but still, like it's like I completely I understand why he was upset to begin with, but then I also understand why he was like, Ryan Johnson is the guy in charge. He's the guy writing this film. I've never done that. It's up to him. And like
right,
you've also got to respect him for that, I
hmm
think.
for
Um,
sure.
but to get into the actual, like we're just talking about everything surrounding
Hmm.
the characterization of Luke. To actually get into it, there's a few elements here. I think people often remember, like when you look back on The Last Jedi, you remember Luke Skywalker as the one Ben Solo's because you get the same scene 3 times. And I
I
think,
love that.
yeah, and I think people often remember Luke Skywalker as the second one where he was about to kill Kylo Ren,
Yes, for
um,
sure.
which isn't how it works. And the whole point of this film, like we talked, like I said about this when we were talking about the throne scene with Kylo Ren and with Benicio del Toro's character, which isn't great, but whatever. I think he's a bit of a like he adds a bit of flair to the character as an actor, but that's a different
Yeah,
conversation. How the whole film is kind of about how there is no definitive right and definitive wrong, and there are no real heroes, and everything's a lot more grey than you think. And like I think that's really interesting. I also think how interesting would this film have been if just Luke Skywalker was exactly the same as we remembered him being.
it wouldn't have been. It would have been a little boring, especially considering Leia more or less is the same.
Yeah, which I guess works for Leia.
Yeah.
Like I can't, and Han's the same as well. To be fair,
Um. Yeah, Han's the same, but like Han makes a little bit more sense because I wouldn't expect Han to change much.
I wouldn't expect Leia to change much as well because Leia has kind of. The thing is, in that group, Han is the scoundrel who messes around and always ends up doing the right thing in the end. Leia is the one that always has done the right thing no matter what. And then
Hmm.
Luke is the protagonist. He's the one that fumbles around a bit and makes mistakes.
Yeah,
And really, I think those 3 things are consistent in this trilogy.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, but like I have no problem with anything regarding the Skywalkers. I do a little bit with Luke, but like that's not my big gripe with the movie. I think the part where the where we come to a fundamental disagreement on with this movie
Mm-hmm.
is that the parts where you're like, yeah, those weren't the best, like those aren't the good parts of the movie, I think are bad enough that it makes it a bad movie.
Yeah.
And like Benicio del Toro, like I think Benicio del Toro, I think that like that's the most interesting part about that entire subplot is the weapon trading and like how like I think his final word being like, maybe I'm on the wrong side. I don't really care. I think that's
Yeah.
really impactful, and I think I like his character. A little bit annoying at times, but I like his character.
I think he's got like how he stumbles over his words a bit and like I think he does a good job.
Yeah. Um. And um. There's one big elephant in the room that we have to talk about. I think that's our final talking point. But before we do that, I will be right back. I have to go check something.
Okay. I'm gonna talk. He's gonna like bring in a lightsaber and like behead me or something. And I could pause the recording right now, but I think by episode 100, our listeners have come to expect a certain level of unprofessionalism. Just how I struggle to say the word expect and professionalism. Uh, Unprofessionalism. This is all going so well, and I'm seeing shadows behind that wall. I think Harlan's on his way back. And if not, I'm just going to keep talking. I'm filibustering right now. I think The Last Jedi involves no character assassination for Luke Skywalker. And I think there are so many great resources online making that. I mean, a year or two ago, I made a YouTube video about why I really love The Last Jedi. And I don't think the video is great. Like, I don't think the quality of it is great. And I think I could have made my points better because I didn't really prepare them. But I would recommend to go back and check them. Arlen's back, but he's yet to put his earphones in, so he still can't hear all the abhorrent things I'm saying about him. And he won't hear them because he's not going to listen back to this because that's just the guy he is, unless like someone sends him a clip, which isn't going to happen, so it's fine.
What are you saying?
I didn't pause the recording. I just filibustered.
Oh, look at you. Okay. So, Poe Dameron.
Mm-hmm.
Laura Dern, is that her name?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Kathleen Kennedy, gone mad. Sorry. Just whenever someone mentions I mean, okay, sorry, I'm undermining like a legitimate complaint here. Whenever somebody mentions that character, I just think about, all the sexist people complaining about it. What's your non-sexist point? Oh, wait, no, you're going to make a really sexist point now, aren't you? You're going to be like, oh,
no, I'm not. It's not
else.
a sexist point. Why didn't she tell anybody? Why didn't she tell Poe Dameron?
Yeah.
Why was she like, hey, come here. This is what I'm going to do. You have to be okay with this. So it'll save us all. She could have done that, and then Poe Dameron could have spent his time on something more valuable.
I get that, but also like, I think it's fair that she didn't tell Poe Dameron because this guy's the guy who's like Leia just kicked out, and she's not a fan of his, and
it's just annoying to watch, especially for a second time.
Yeah,
because you watch him like being like, and you know what's gonna happen, and I guess like Poe Dameron does come like I do like his opening scene,
yeah,
and him learning that lesson. But I don't know. It's just annoying to watch.
Fair enough.
And I think it hurts the film more than it helps.
Interesting. It's never really bothered me that much, and I think I honestly will admit that I think that's because of the thing we're talking about. That if you like a film, you're willing to forgive the slightly smaller things than that, because that's not an issue that's like crumbling the entire film. That's just like that's an annoyance or a flaw with like the subplot. And that's kind of my viewpoint.
Just so you know, you could probably cut this out, but I have to go at 5:30 sharp. Is when I need to leave.
Cool. That'll be chill. Yeah.
Okay. So
the characters are separated all film.
The cast is so large that I think it does kind of make sense. Like there are two plots going on in this movie, and one of them is good and one of them is bad.
There are one of them is wolves inside you.
One of them is easily stronger.
Will really enjoy that joke if he's listening to this.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said there are two wolves inside you.
Is that a Lord of the Rings quote?
No, it's just a meme. Continue.
Oh. Anyways, and it's just like how, like, which one is more, like, is the one plot stronger that makes it a good movie, or is the other plot so weak it makes it a bad movie? I think that, like, I really enjoy watching the strong plot. I like watching it, but then I have to sit through this boring other plot that I don't care about.
See, to me, the two wolves inside of me is that there's a phenomenal subplot which I adore, and then there's another subplot which I think is pretty good, and at the end of the day, that's the division we have drawn, and that's fine. It's completely allowed for people to have other opinions than you, and I think that's the lesson I'm here to teach today. Okay, I'm gonna get on my soapbox, and I just like to say I'm proud of us having such a respectful conversation about this
We
because
really did it.
it's fine for people to disagree.
Yeah, it's you know what, Dean? Like I have no problem with you having an incorrect opinion. Like that is okay. That's
And
okay.
I have no problem with you having dozens of incorrect opinions about so many different things. I accept that for you, and like I know that's who you are as a person. You're unable to change that.
And you know what? Like the fact that you like such weak characters and stories, like that must be so much fun for you because you much like the worst movies of all time, and you don't get mad
The
at
fact that
this.
you can't appreciate the real nuanced storytelling that is just really subversive and just geniusly written by Ryan Johnson, I think really is American of you.
You know, the fact that you can
We've really
idolize
evolved
the
at
fact
the
that
end.
you can idolize such a mediocre director is it's like
Are
it's
you
so much
calling
fun.
Ryan Johnson a media? How many Ryan Johnson films have you watched? 3. You've watched the 2 Knives Out films and the Last Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah, I've only.
That was me just stoking the
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
We're just having a little bit of fun.
That was a little bit of fun because
We're
we
having fun.
respect each other, and that's how we show appreciation. Is we just mock each other relentlessly, constantly.
Um,
Okay, final question.
yeah.
I was thinking, wouldn't it be really cool in the Force? I've like got a pitch because I think it's really interesting in the Force how in episode 4 the Force doesn't make anything lift or move towards you like that. I think that's just an interesting little tidbit. So what if they added a new Force power in this film, and it made it that when you're a ghost, your accent changes to a different accent? Question number one, do you think that's a good idea? Question number 2, how do you think Yoda would sound in his scene if that happened?
I think it's a great idea. And if I had to assume,
Yeah.
it'd be like, Mamma Mia, not the page turners they are. Something like
Mamma
that.
mia! Yes, failure teaches us most of all. Mamma mia!
But the real question I want to ask the viewers who made it to this point, just because we got through it, good job, Dean, is who do you agree with? Do you agree with me or do you agree with Dean? Because I feel like we both made some pretty good points.
I think that was a very like I feel good after this conversation. Like I feel like a weight has been lifted off the floor in this room because there is no longer any elephants in here.
Well, you know, besides episode 3. But we'll get to that in like a couple weeks.
Yeah. But next week, give me some time to think. It's nothing to do with the boys. It's
I've been rewatching season 2. I know we're gonna do that at some point, but I enjoyed the first season so much I was like, I just have to keep this going.
Yeah, fair enough. Next week is Across the Spider-Verse. We'll be talking about, which
Yes, it is.
everyone's saying it's like the best comic book movie ever.
It's like the Empire Strikes Back of superhero movies.
I mean,
saying.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite comic book movie ever.
Mm-hmm. So is James Gunn.
Yeah, I mean, James Gunn has taste because he chucks Superman in his. I mean, Deadpool. That's a couple minus points there for you, James Gunn. No offense, I respect you.
Oh my god, this guy.
Deadpool's pretty good. Deadpool 2's better. But he put Superman in his top.
He did.
I need to rewatch Deadpool. I'm taking back on my Deadpool opinions because I need to rewatch it. But he put Superman
because your god said so. Your movie making god, James Gunn.
I love James Gunn. Also, I haven't watched those films in a while. Thank you for listening, everyone. Adios.
Yes. No, I got it before.
I got it before.
I said it first, and then I heard your recording say it.
If we go to the tape, I'm the one recording this.
Well, it says that because of the delay, because you're 6 hours in the middle of nowhere.
Can we just end this on a loving note for once?
No.
I would just like to thank you for 100 weeks, 102 weeks, because we've missed 2 weeks that no one knows about of doing this podcast together. Did you think we'd be doing it for that long?
No. And look at us.
Look at us, just guys being dudes.
This dude's being guys.
Yeah, and it's been a what ride, and we're never doing this again. When I said we're talking about Across the Spider-Verse next week, it's actually going to be me and
Don't you say it. Don't you say it. Don't.
JB. Thank you for listening, guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.